It's time to go full circle with our full circle conclusions. You might remember that when we started this program, I said the first time I used Book in a Month, beginning with the writing from art, is when I created Cooper Ridge, the Wonder Kid. That is also the first place I used the lesson on creating conclusions. So both from the start and to the finish, I have used many of the lessons to actually create one of my books. I want you guys to know that this Book in a Month thing, it's really possible. So today we're going to talk about full circle conclusions. And like we've used all throughout this writing process, we never write in a linear fashion. We never write in a non-sensory fashion or a single sensory fashion. It's full sensory, it's non-linear. So if you've been working through your book, you've created not just a timeline that goes like this or a list that goes like this. Remember, you've created all sorts of pieces that then we're working on connecting. So why wouldn't we want our start to also be connected to our finish? We want to make sure that the whole story goes full circle. To do that, we're going to think about what we did in yesterday's assignment, which was all about creating your introduction. Remember that we started with those 4 C's. We had chaos, curiosity, character, and cause. Within each of those sections, we decided that we needed to do more than just that hook, not just that punch of an opening line, not a joke, not a question. We needed to actually develop. We needed to add some sensory detail. We needed to really build that beyond a word, a sentence, or a paragraph, and instead into a paragraph, a page, or a chapter. Because of that, you ended up with a whole bunch of different elements in hopefully that opening chapter. And that is the tool that you will need to tie your story full circle back to the beginning. So let me give you some examples of how to do a tie back. So how do you take those starting elements and make sure that your finishing elements are tied to them in your conclusion? There are 4 basic ways. They are contrast, direct tie back, repetition, and completing cycle. What are these? So a contrast, in the beginning, it's storming. In the end, the sun comes out. That's a really obvious kind of a contrast, but it can be done in a lot of other ways too. You could have in the beginning, somebody used crutches and in the end their leg is healed. That one actually kind of falls into our completing cycle too. But it's anything that you have in the beginning and it's a symbolic conclusion is that you no longer have that. Usually it goes from negative to positive. Sometimes it's just a foreshadow of positive to come. But a contrast is any time that in your story, you're going to take something that was said in the beginning and then you're going to flip it and you're going to say it on the end. And you might even want to mention in there, Susan remembered the storm and she never thought that she would escape it, as she was staring at the sun breaking its way through the clouds. You might want to really frame it so that you're pointing out that full circle conclusion. All of a sudden, your reader is brought back to the beginning and they feel automatic satisfaction. A direct tie back is exactly the opposite of a contrast. So you might have in the beginning, they worked on making this building together. Somebody's on a work site. So maybe it opens up on the work site and they're creating this building. Then you've had a storm that occurs in your story that has shaken the building to its foundation and it's been demolished. You might have that character again in the end on that same site building that building once again. That is a direct tie back. The exact same thing that's happening in the beginning is happening in the end. That's what your direct tie back. Repetition, I use this one a lot. This is what I actually used in Cooper Ridge, the Wonder Kid. This is where you actually take sentences, words, phrases. I don't think I would go as long as like a full paragraph. And you're actually going to repeat those exact words in the end. And the reader might not always pick up on that one. They might be like, gosh, this is familiar, but they're not going to miss it from an emotional perspective. They're still going to feel that full circle tie back to the beginning of your story. And then the last piece is a completing cycle. Like I said, with the leg broken, that might be something that could count as a completing cycle. Your leg is broken in the beginning. There's all of this healing that goes on throughout. Well, the completed cycle is that the leg is healed at the end. Another completing cycle that's very common in stories is something that would be a seasonal cycle. It could be like it opens in spring, it ends in winter. It opens in winter, it ends in spring. It's a natural cycle that is completing. Age is a cycle. Seasons are cycles. Healing is a cycle. Completing a project is a cycle. You might even describe the steps of that project along the way. So anything that is a natural completing cycle, it's going to have a logical conclusion that is going to fall into that completing cycle full circle. And speaking of the word logical, if you went back and you did your logic drop-ins and your relationship timelines, which were part of your style and sequence week in week 3, you might discover that you already have a full circle conclusion in place. What I'd like you to do, and you're going to see in your homework that you have to create those full circle conclusions, what I'd like you to do is look back at the beginning and say, what is that thing that I highlighted in the beginning? And have I made sure that I've highlighted it in the end as well? That is how you're going to create your full circle conclusion for your book in a month.